So what we should look for during our ethical hack is certainly open authentication. That's an open door. That's a gimme. You'd be so lucky if you found that, especially if you're getting paid by project instead of by the hour, because you just saved a lot of time and energy. Just walk right into the network and start hacking. You're now on the network. Web security. If the system has web, well, it's just going to take a little bit longer than open. You just have to worry about whether there's some kind of intrusion detection and prevention on the access points themselves. But to be honest, if an administrator has left WEP in place on their wireless network, they probably don't have a real good intrusion detection or firewall system going on, at least on this side of the network. They might focus on preventing attacks from the internet or preventing attacks in another way, but certainly not on this side. So I'll just waltz in and crack WEP and then continue my attack, because cracking WEP just makes it an open network for me. For Wi-Fi protected setup, I mentioned the button that you can press on a lot of these access points that allows you to associate. Well, there was a compromise discovered and documented very recently, a couple of months ago at the time of this recording, that allows an attacker to connect up to an access point that has this feature enabled and actually suck out the PIN, which then allows them to suck out the WPA or WPA2 crypto information. This kind of vulnerability, it's not on every single device in every single place, but it's often enough seen where WPS is now being shut down. Most security experts are recommending that enterprise and big customers, middle-sized companies, even mom and dad kind of home environments shut off WPS. Because if it's shut off, even if the feature is available on the access point, if WPS is disabled, these attacks simply don't work. So shutting off WPS is great for administrators. For a hacker, if I find it, if it's on, if I can press that button, first of all, if I can physically press it, that's great because I can associate my wireless client with it. But if WPS is enabled at all, I can probably make the hack a little bit easier. If the company is using MAC-based authentication, well, just like with a wired client, I'll just change my MAC. I'll sniff the network for a little while, find a few wireless clients that are actually authorized to use the wireless network, and then either they'll go offline or I'll conduct a denial of service directly against them, and then I'll become that computer. I'll become that host by spoofing the MAC. And then finally, this old corny one of no SSID broadcast. If an administrator disables SSID broadcast or uses MAC-based authentication or both, those are pretty much gimmies as well, because there's no security from disabling SSID, just like there's no real security from using MAC authentication by themselves or together. Certainly if you're doing MAC auth and you're doing SSID broadcast disable and you're doing 802.1x, WPA, things like that, yes, it's going to be much, much harder. But I see enough wireless networks that just disable SSID and require specific MACs or whitelist, blacklist MACs. And aside from that, it's actually open or even WEP. Great, no problem at all. Those things don't combine to a secure solution. And early on in the footprinting process, when I'm sniffing and looking at all of those wireless networks, you saw the screenshot earlier of displaying a bunch of networks, oftentimes I'll be, let's say, near a big money bank and their SSID for the company is BMB Co. Well, if I've got all of these SSIDs and I'm sniffing around, and I'm seeing all of these SSIDs belong to, based on the MAC prefix, Cisco 1142N access points, and they're on channels 1, 6, and 11 with WPA2. And if I see that consistently, I'll get a really clear idea that this is what this company does. This company has a standard for this device on these channels using this SSID with this auth approach. Excellent. I love that when it's consistent. I love it even more as an ethical hacker when it's inconsistent. So as the example here, take a look on the bottom. You can see this one oddball, this D-Link DAP 1360. That's also on channel 1, also using the same SSID, and it's an open auth. This is a real benefit for an ethical hacker. It typically means that either an administrator has thrown an extra wireless access point to cover some dead spots or some extra coverage in one spot in the building, or it means a user has actually brought in their own access point and deployed it so that they can maybe connect an unauthorized device or get access in an area that they wouldn't normally. And they've thought enough to say, oh, well, I'll name it BMB Co so that no one notices. Well, the real administrators might not notice, but ethical hackers will notice. Look at this inconsistency. I'm going to go straight on after this D-Link. That's going to be my first stop. And if I can get access to the corporate network through this open D-Link, I only need access long enough to plant myself another way in, and then I'm never going to touch it again. D-Links in particular are fun because usually the users of D-Links will leave the default passwords intact. This user may have changed the SSID, but they didn't think enough to change the auth, so they probably don't know enough to change the default password. Fantastic.